Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Watchlist. Basically, think of this as a monthly TV guide of me letting you know what and when stuff that I'm interested in, that maybe you're interested in too, is coming out. Like always, in the description down below, I will be including links to any trailers, if there are any trailers available, about any of the TV shows that I'm talking about. On April 2nd, we have the series premiere of The Crossing on ABC. Now, this is a show I don't really know that much about. I've seen little previews here and there about it, but basically it seems like people who are trying to escape a war in the future come back in time and land in this small town, which is just kind of an interesting concept. Like, beyond that, I really don't know. I haven't read too much into the series. Like I see, I've saw little sneak peeks, because basically what you see is like everyone ends up in this water. How exactly they went about time traveling and what the show necessarily is going to be about, I mean, obviously it seems like it's about trying to change the future. I'm curious to see like how that all like evolves. Like it does seem like a time travel show, but it doesn't seem like, it seems like that's kind of like a one and done time travel show of like, oh, once you time travel, you're done, there's no changing that. At least for now, that's what it seems like. But you know, like I said, I don't know, I haven't seen a lot of it, so maybe there's a trailer out there that kind of breaks down the story a little bit more. So like I said, it's just something interesting. I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. On April 3rd, we have the season 2 premiere of Legion on FX, which I'm super excited about. If you have not checked out Legion, I've said this multiple times, watch the show. It's very good. Someone recently kind of put out a perspective of like, it might not be for everyone, which it might not be. If you're unfamiliar, it's basically an X-Men show, but it's a very unique X-Men show because it's very like trippy and psychological. It's not, it has action in it, but it's not like a full-blown like actiony superhero type of show. But it has a lot of depth to it, so like I'm super excited to see what goes on with season 2, especially the way season 1 ended. Obviously with David's story, as well as like the main antagonist story as well. And like, you know, I did check out the trailer, and I'm glad to see that they are keeping up with that like psychological angle. It does seem like that wasn't just season 1. It seems like that's going to be a big part of season 2 as well. It just seems like that's the nature of the show, so I'm glad to see that kind of continuing. So like, if you have not seen it, I mean, change that now. Like, you know, I guess, you know, it's the first season's only like 8 episodes, so you might be able to squeeze that in before the second season. But even if you don't catch up in time to watch the second season, still watch the first season. It's super good. On April 8th, we have the series premiere of Killing Eve on BBC America. Now, I don't really know too much about this show. I saw a little while back, but reading up on it a tiny bit, it seems basically the premise of it is like this MI5 agent is basically having a cat and mouse situation with like a methodical killer, which is kind of interesting. So like, you know, if you're looking for something more on that kind of like crime drama mystery thriller type of thing, I think this kind of might be right up your alley. Which is also interesting too, because I feel like there's not a lot of like, because they kind of label it as like a spy cat and mouse type of situation, which is like, huh, I feel like you never really see those type of stories with like spies. Usually like cops, like, oh, this might be like a regular cop or detective against like a serial killer, but you never see like a spy. So I'm curious to see like how that all kind of like comes together when it comes to the story. From what I've been reading online, it does seem that it is a mini series, so like it might be, you know, pretty much a one and done type of series. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes that entails. On April 13th, we have the series premiere of Lost in Space on Netflix. Now, I'm not that familiar with this series because it's like an old TV series that was also adapted into a movie at one point in time. Like, literally, like, one of the things I know from this series is Danger Will Robinson. Like, I've never known what that was a reference to, but now I'm like, oh, so that's what this was a reference to, because I'm not familiar with the show and or movie adaptation of the story, because I think it was originally like a novel, if I'm remembering correctly. So basically the premise is exploring space and a family getting lost, landing on an unknown planet. It looks like a very nice, I don't know how to, like, a very good science fictional story of just kind of like exploration in this new world. A lot of stuff kind of seems like vibrant and colorful. Like I said, I'm going into this not really knowing too much. I've kind of avoided really reading too much, and it's been a little while since I saw the trailer, so I'm kind of blanking on just what exactly is going on. But it seems like an interesting story, especially for someone that might be like, oh, I've seen the original, so I'm curious to see what they do in this reboot or remake, where some people might be like, oh, another reboot slash remake. So, you know, depending on your whole opinion about that. But as someone who doesn't really know the series that well, I'm curious to see like what this is all about. This is going to be my first instance with it. So on April 16th on the CW, we have the return of Supergirl, which I'm super excited about. The last time we left off with Supergirl, 2 of the world killers came together. Obviously, Rain and purity, if I'm remembering correctly. So only one world killer left. And so I'm curious, obviously, to see kind of how this all, like, you know, plays out. Obviously, to find out who the third world killer is, and also for Kara to find out the whole truth behind Reign. I'm curious to see what happens with that, especially because Sam herself is kind of getting more and more concerned. Obviously, she's blacking out, so she doesn't know she's Reign and everything. Spoilers, if you haven't seen Supergirl, sorry. So I'm curious to see, like, who's going to find out first. Is Sam going to find out about herself first, or will Kara? And especially because at the same time, everyone knows about Sam's situation now. You have Lena, Alex, as well as Kara knowing about Sam's situation and trying to help her. So on April 20th, also on the CW, we have the season 5 premiere of the originals, which sadly this will be the final season. Obviously going into this, like the way season 4 ended, where the Michelson family whole situation ended, I'm very interested to see how they close like this story. I'm not too surprised, like with the way it ended, like you could definitely tell, like, yo, we're setting up for a final season type of situation. Plus the Vampire Diaries has also already ended like last year, so it kind of fits, you know, that it would be kind of like the time to end the originals anyway. Interestingly enough, it seems like we are getting another time skip, because if you know, for whatever reason come across as an unaware, there was a time skip obviously between season 3 and season 4. It seems like we're going to get another one, because back in the Comic-Con trailers that dropped for things back last year, the one they put out for the originals, it was kind of told from Hope's perspective, but it was a slightly older Hope, so it's probably been like another 5 years or something like that, which is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see. It seems like they're probably stepping her up to be kind of like maybe the lead this season potential, maybe not, I don't know, but I'm curious to see like what ends up happening, like what's going to happen to the Michelsons this season, how they plan to kind of wrap this entire series up. Obviously this is the last story within that universe, within the Vampire Diaries universe, which is interesting too, because I was watching something and I saw a certain character pop up. I was like, oh, well, it kind of makes sense, because, well, so, you know, because of this person's connection to Klaus, I'm like, oh, of course you kind of pop up. And I don't know, maybe Klaus ended up tracking this person down. Obviously I don't want to spoil anything, but it might have been like a set photo or something like that. But either way, I'm just kind of interested to see how this all plays out. Also, if you've never checked out anything related to the originals, like whether it be the Vampire Diaries or the originals itself, you should take the time to do it. They're very good shows. Even though they take place in the same universe and kind of, you know, the originals is kind of a spin-off, it's kind of interesting that they're kind of very two different shows. They share a lot of themes, but at the same time, it's like they're very distinct and different in my opinion, but you know, whatever the case may be, kind of take it and do what you want with it. But a great place to check it out is on Netflix, because the entirety of the Vampire Diaries series is up there. I mean, at least the last time I checked, and all 4 of the current seasons of the originals are up there as well, so you can kind of like check them all out, which is definitely going to be interesting, because there's crossover between the shows, and like you would probably have to bounce back and forth between both shows to kind of really get 100% of the context. But I'm sure it's just going to be fun binging all of one and then binging all the other one if you decide to ultimately do that. Either way. And on April 22nd on AMC, we have the season 3 premiere of Into the Badlands, which I'm super excited about. If you've not checked out Into the Badlands, you need to change it. It's a fantastic, like, martial arts, like, action drama. Like, in my opinion, I think Into the Badlands has some of, like, the best, like, choreography action you will probably see on TV, because it has some of that kind of floatiness fighting to it that kind of like Crouching Tiger has, like with some of the movement. But obviously it's like it's bloody and heavy hitting and stuff like that, because interestingly enough about Into the Badlands world, it's kind of like almost like a dystopian future where it's like a lot of like technology, like the world has become kind of barren, and so there isn't a lot of technology to it, because there's a lot of stuff that pops up in the show. You're like, oh, you know what it is, but obviously people in the show don't, because it's been such a long time. And I don't know if that's ever going to be something that they actually go into in the show or not, but either way, I'm interested to see where they take season 3, especially the way things ended for a lot of people last season. Sunny's story in particular, I'm curious to see what they do with Minerva, her and MK, what their whole story is going to be like this season too. So there's a lot riding on where things go from here. And also, if you haven't checked out the series, a great place to check it out is on Netflix. They recently added the 2nd season to it, so you can check out both seasons. They're fairly short too. The first season's only like 6 episodes. Season 2's only 10. So, you know, there's plenty enough time in between that you can, you know, catch up on a series if you want to. On April 24th, also on the CW, we have the season 5 premiere of The 100. Super excited about that, especially with what they did with season 4's finale. Like, obviously there are 3 groups split up. Obviously, I won't really go into spoilers for anyone that's not caught up or hasn't watched the originals or whatever. I mean, the 100, sorry. So I'm curious to see where, like, I saw the trailer and it's kind of interesting because we have new characters popping up, which you wouldn't expect there to be new characters with everything that this show is about, and especially with the way season 4 ended. It's actually interesting because the character, like, that was introduced at the end of season 4, like, after a while I was like, oh wait, that character totally has to be this, but then it was like the way the trailers make it seem like, I'm like, oh, so that character isn't what I thought, who I thought they were, or is it just that Clark's lying about who that person is to them? I feel like, I don't know, it's just you happen to come across a person and I'm like, I don't know, I think it's something else. Obviously, to put it in terms, I mean, you know, it's not the case, but in my mind I was thinking, like, after I was watching, I was like, isn't that most likely like Bellamy and Clark's kid? I thought that's what that was supposed to represent, but it's like, no, she found her. So I was like, oh, so never mind, so that's totally not your kid. I was right to think like, oh, that's just some kid. Like, where did that person come from? Because basically everyone that wasn't, you know, I'm trying not to go into spoilers, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. It's definitely gonna be interesting, like I said, with the introduction of new characters, finding out what the hell their whole deal about. It's like, what is that about? And on April 25th on, I think, in it, FXX, we have the season 9 premiere of Archer. The subtitle is Danger Island, because of course, Danger Zone. If you have not checked out Archer, you need to change that. It's such a fun, amazing cartoon. You're just like, it's so good. I'm curious to see what they do about this, which is very interesting because I haven't checked out anything for this season, because like I was just looking at like, oh, what's coming out this month, and it's like I happen to see that. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, because I've not really seen hide nor hair of it. So it's kind of, I'm gonna be super excited. I'll probably end up watching a trailer afterwards, but obviously it's Archer, so it's just kind of like, I'm fine with kind of just being surprised. I don't really need to know what's happening this season, but I am curious to see what their theme is, because I always like it when they include subtitles, because it just like means like, oh yeah, there's this whole theme going on this particular season. So I'm curious to see what Danger Island's all about. Also, another show that if you have not checked out, last time I checked, they had maybe all of the series on Netflix. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. And finally, on April 30th on CBS, we have the season 6 premiere of Elementary. Finally, because if you don't know, Elementary starting like super late this year. Usually it starts like way earlier than now, but I mean, that's kind of interesting. It also seemed like it's on a new night too, which is like, this is like the 3rd time it's moved nights, because it was on Thursdays, then Sundays for a little bit. Now it's on Mondays, which is interesting. Not a problem, just kind of interesting. You can't help but notice when a show like moves to a different date, it always kind of messes with you a little bit. Nevertheless, obviously, season 5 had a pretty big cliffhanger being like, whoa! So I'm curious to see what happens, because currently the only one who knows about this situation is Sherlock. Like, Watson's slowly being like, okay, wait, what's going on here? She's trying to figure everything out. So I'm curious to see what happens going forward with that. Also to see what like the major, like obviously that's going to be a big focus of the season, but also like, you know, there's probably going to be like a big overarching case, which they typically are each season, like, you know. So I'm curious to see what this season's case is going to be about. I'm also curious, are like any other characters going to find out about this particular situation or not? Probably not, because of who Sherlock is. He probably wouldn't want anyone else to know. But hell, he probably wouldn't even want Watson to know, but won't have much of a choice in the matter. And that brings this month's watch list to an end. Like always, if there's something that you're aware of that you think maybe I'd be interested in, or someone else might be interested in, let us know in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good